Good morning, everybody. My name is Kayla Cook, and I'm the owner and lead planner for Kayla Cook Events. We specialize in corporate event planning, production, and experiential event design. And I'm here today on behalf of the Northwest Event Show, moderating their virtual event series, Industry Conversations. This series is featured as the next phase in the event industry as we're navigating through COVID. This series was created in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic to elevate our industry and really bring us together as a community. It features leaders and experts and touches on topics that are affecting our industry in real time. This is the fifth session in our series, and we will be talking about what we can expect this year and beyond, how virtual events have blossomed, how the return of live in-person events will come to fruition, and what we can expect for 2021. In honor of Women's History Month, I'm really excited that all the women on this panel are women today, featured as female forward, and all of them are true leaders in our industry and all making some giant waves. So before we jump into the panel, I'd like to get started by thanking all of our partners today. We have SHW, who is our production partner today, helping with our live event live stream. SHW is a full-service event agency based in Seattle, Washington. They deliver high-impact events and experiences around the globe. They both do large-scale in-person gatherings as well as digital broadcasts just like this one today. Project Bionic is our social media partner. They have been partners with the Northwest Event Show for 2+ years and are true experts in the world of social media. Project Bionics creates strategic and customized roadmaps for growing authentic relationships between the companies and online communities. MC Event Consulting is our media partner. They are a team of professionals committed to excellent, driven, sustainable event management. And Campos Coffee is our coffee sponsor this morning. Thank you to them and cheers. At Campos Coffee, they believe that coffee tastes better when it's made ethically, sustainably, and with care. And a big shout out to Norina Productions, helping with content and marketing for the Northwest Event Show. She is a full service of a few different, Jackie, shout out to her. It's full service events and marketing agency assisting clients to deliver exclusive content and event experiences. And last but not least, we all know it takes a village to make these things happen. I'd like to say a big thank you to the Search Foundation. They're our nonprofit partner, and the Northwest Event Show has partnered with them to help run donations through our virtual event series. So all donations that are made today will go directly to the Search Foundation, and that is as simple as a text. So text NWS to 44321 to make a donation today. So without further ado, I'm really excited. I'm honored to be here. Thank you, the Northwest Event Show. Thank you again to all of our partners. I'd really like to introduce our speakers. So up first is Marka Jenkins-Wilkshire. Marka is the CEO of SH Worldwide, and she also consults and mentors for nonprofits and startup organizations. She draws 25 years of professional experience and leadership with sectors in airlines, travel technology, travel agency, and travel merchandising, corporate events and content strategy, coaching, yoga, and nonprofit management. Welcome, Marka.
Thank you, Kayla. Thank you so much for having us today. I'm really excited about my fellow panelists and just focusing on women in our industry. So I really appreciate being here. You did a nice intro on SHW when you mentioned our sponsorship. I would just add that we really like to design events that inspire human connections, and we think people are the most important part about events. Whether it's virtual, online, experientially, people are the part that we try and focus on the most. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for being here. And up next, we have Mackenzie Stokel. Mackenzie is the co-founder of Evia, technology-driven platform that connects event planners with vetted live entertainment. I'm super excited to talk to Mackenzie. How are you doing, Mackenzie?
Great. I'm really excited to be here. I'll certainly try and bring a perspective on types of entertainment that you can book for virtual and in-person events, and I'm really excited to hear what everybody else has to say as well.
Awesome. Thanks for being here. And last but not least, we have Catherine Frankenson. Catherine is the Director of Event Marketing for Informa. And Informa, if you're unaware, is the global leader specializing in events and event intelligence. Catherine, how are you doing?
I'm good. It's great to be here. Yeah, we do all the things. I'll bring it a little bit of a different perspective. We've got a really well-rounded panel, but I come from a event sales and advertising sales background. I made the move into marketing, and so a lot of my perspective is around how do we get the market's attention, how do we get the people to our events that we want, and how do we monetize them moving forward as well.
Awesome. That is great. Well, during the marketing process of this event, Jackie had asked us all what our Q1 of 2021 goals were. And I thought that was funny because my response was to dust off my 2020 goals. So throughout the panel today, I would love to hear from you guys on what your goals are for 2021 and kind of what excites you. So feel free to kind of sprinkle that in as a takeaway for all of our attendees tuning in. And without further ado, let's jump into the open discussion. I think everyone's really excited. And like I mentioned at the beginning, the core of this event series is really to feature leaders and experts that are really helping us pave the way and navigate the new climate of the event industry. So with that being said, I'm really curious to hear from each of you on how your companies, from a company standpoint as well as individually, are navigating back to live events. So go ahead and jump in.
Sure, I'll jump in. So my company, Eva, we're pretty small. We are only 7 people. So, fortunately, being on a small team, I think it's been easy for us to quickly pivot and make changes as virtual became our main source of business. So I think hopefully that'll be the same case when we're kind of shifting back. But I do think there will be an aspect of virtual that stays with these events. That hybrid aspect, I think, is going to stick around even once it is totally safe to meet. I think a lot of companies and individuals are realizing how efficient it can be and convenient and cost saving to do virtual, have some form of virtual aspect for conferences, meetings, and events. So I think we'll still see a lot of that around, but we're certainly just trying to be as safe as possible as in my company and really educate our clients on how they can do that as well. I'm finding a lot of people don't necessarily, and every state's different as well. So it's very important to try and keep everybody as up to speed as possible with the changes around events in person.
Right. Yeah, and coming from a small company, like you said, I guess kind of pivoting over to Catherine and Marka, I mean, you guys have giant companies compared to seven people. So how are you guys, making the pivot to go back to live?
Well, I think we're not that giant. I think we might be like the Goldilocks right here, and I'd be in the middle. And we, we're just somewhat small, larger than your company, Mackenzie. Right now, we have about 30 people some are on various forms of standby, but really only 11 people are working full time. So totally understand that. And I think that's a big part of what we are all thinking about as we bring people back on is how do we bring our talent back together and keep them all cohesive and part of this process coming back to work. But to touch on something that you said, Mackenzie, safety is something that we're super focused on. And that's not new, right? We've all been event planners for a long time or been in the business. And really, safety and security is something that's been at the forefront of what we do for a long time. And I look at COVID and COVID mitigations as just one more thing on our long laundry list of things that we need to look out for. I mean, we've all taken earthquake disaster prep or active shooter on a more tragic kind of note. All of these different types of things have hit our industry, and they really expect us as planners to have answers. And I look at COVID as no different. This is where we really need to follow the state guidelines, look at what's going on, and make sure that we have all those mitigation plans in place.
That's great.
Yeah, well, and I think it's...
yeah, go ahead, Mackenzie.
I was just going to jump in and say, too, hitting the 1-year anniversary of COVID and thinking back, there's a lot of reflection that week. Where were we all a year ago? What have we gone through this year? And what's interesting is that a year is a long enough time to create a mindset shift and a dynamic shift for our events. Everything canceled, they went virtual, and now we're rebuilding what each event looks like. And I think the thing that we're focused on the most is almost redefining events. I agree with Mackenzie that it's, we're thinking beyond just these tentpole moments and more broadly into what is a bigger experience that we can create. Our timetables are changing in terms of we're broadening out what we want an event experience to be, but we're also getting a little bit more agile in how quickly we can plan for that. But I would say the biggest component that's shifted is that we're taking it down to the product level more than we ever have before, because everything is different. Regionally, it's going to depend on what vertical you're in. In Forma at large, we are a global company. So we're also, my events trade domestically here in the US. So that's what I'm focused on. But we've got events that are, coming off and online in mainland China. Dubai is reopening, Australia. So it is interesting just to see how truly different it is where you are in the world. And we also see that even in our US footprint. So instead of, okay, we're planning for when we open Reg and when we launch agendas or what the event makeup is going to be, we have to really look at it in a different way. How do we serve audiences? What's the right timetable for the event? So we are bringing back hybrid events. I agree that that's the right balance and integration. We're doing, planning for Q4 in person, also 2022, but a lot of it is so individualized to the actual event, just to make sure that you're getting the right balance of what that audience needs at that time.
That's great. And you all kind of touched on this a little bit. I mean, just here in Washington, where I'm based, we're moving into phase 3. So that was really great news for everyone, especially for the wedding industry and the corporate event industry. But every state's a little bit different. And so I think looking at it from a state by state level, especially planners that do business across state lines, it can get a little bit confusing. Can anyone kind of talk to Marka? We talked a little about this before in our pre-run, but just how you're navigating the guidelines to make sure that attendees are feeling safe, suppliers are feeling safe to go back to business.
Well, I think the thing that we're really focused on is just staying informed and trying to event planners like to have nice, crisp event plans, and we love time and all those things. Well, all that went out the window, because now what we need more than anything is flexibility. And that flexibility is to stay informed. And one of the resources I mentioned to you on the call earlier was the CDC travel planning resource, which is a great resource for domestic travel. And you can put in the state, it will pull up all of the things that are in place in that state, as well as link you to the health department of that state so that you make sure you have really current information. But in addition to that, I think that one thing that's really important is to pay attention where your attendees are coming from. So like you said, Catherine, it's different no matter where you are in the world right now. And so people's expectations are different. And I went to an event this weekend and haven't been in the Washington area for a while. And, the first thing they do is take your temperature, sign you in, have you sign a COVID waiver. And, that's not happening in other parts of the country. So really understanding where the attendees' mindset is when they're walking in the door, I think is particularly important, so we can help them still have a really good hospitality experience by thinking where their mindset is where they're coming from.
Right. And I think that's an interesting point. Oh, sorry. And actually, Catherine, I was going to go back to you because we spoke a little bit about magic that just happened. And there was actually an article in the Wall Street Journal about it. And it was interesting how they laid out the different things that they were going through to make sure everyone felt safe. So temperature checks and on-site COVID testing. I mean, nobody has a crystal ball, but do you feel that could be something that could be, mandatory moving forward?
I think it's going to depend on the event organizer. There is a cost to that. The Magic event that Informa ran was really an opportunity to bring a couple of big show organizers together and say, we want to try modeling what could work here. How do we also promote safety. I mean, we know that everyone is going through a really robust checklist of every health and safety and security measure that we can possibly take. Informa has actually come up with an all secure document. It's something that we market, we build into all of our communication and marketing plans because, Marcus said early on, safety it's right at the tip of the spear. I mean, we have to be communicating that. And the more robust that it is, attendees are looking for that information because, we paused. And so they haven't been to, an in-person event probably since COVID. And so everyone wants to know what that looks like. Everyone's eyes are on what exactly is that process going to be? How will I get my badge? How will I register? What's the space going to look like? What is the venue? And so there's also such a curiosity for it. The event ran incredibly well in Orlando. So the vendors that, we partnered with from the venue to Freeman to doing the rapid testing worked really well. I will say another note, and I think a takeaway for improving audience confidence is you really do have to put yourself in their shoes. So if you think of opening, registration for event 2021 and 2022, we all want to get more revenue. We want to start charging for our events again. Oftentimes with virtual, they were free. And so when you build your hybrid model and you've got, an opportunity to join digitally, you've got an opportunity to go in person, something that you can do that's going to help you get some of that revenue a little bit earlier on, but still instill confidence is allow people to switch pass types at any time. So they're going to have that question in their mind when they register. Well, what if something changes and instead of going into a holding pattern, if they know that at any point I can just move this to a virtual pass, it's going to make that decision a lot easier for them to make. And then you've got them as a captive audience, and in your confirmation emails, you can keep building that confidence. So social proof is one of the tactics that we use. So as people are posting their social graphics or saying that they're really excited to go to your event, screenshot all of that. And when you send that confirmation email, include that so excited that you're going to be able to connect with, your peers and industry friends, and that can help tell the right story because everyone's just really curious about what things are going to look like.
Right. That's an interesting point. And I think as we're starting to move into going back to live events and, hybrid, I feel like hybrid's become the new buzzword, but really hybrid events have been around for a long time. And I think the question kind of is how will marketing events evolve, right? Because we want to make sure people feel safe, your attendees. But yeah, how do you think that will change? And I guess it's a question for all of you guys doing events in different sectors of the industry, but how are we going to market to our attendees and make them feel safe?
Well, safety is huge. And what's interesting too is it's also how do we get them excited and eager again? I mean, safety is absolutely a tenet of your communication and marketing plan, but for the most part, our audiences were able to go on with their lives without our events for a year. So they had a chance to see if they missed it or not. And now we're in this battle to prove that the event is valuable and relevant and that there's an experience that they, should opt into there, that it's safe enough, it's interesting enough. There's a really strong value proposition. And so I think as you're rebuilding that, you have to look at, okay, how do we, what's the revenue model? How do we monetize that? And you have to reinvent. You absolutely have to. The same components of your event that drew people in. And I think a reliance on people are going to be excited to meet again. People are going to be excited to gather. That's not going to be enough. You really have to know who is your, ideal customer. How are we serving them? Is there something that they're creating or experiencing on site that they can't get anywhere else? Are we making the offer really, really enticing? And then I think you have to, break some rules. You don't have to follow a lot of events. They follow this really traditional cadence, and that's just not how you're going to get people's attention and pique their curiosity and have them go to your health and safety page and read through it and then feel safe. So I think those who are willing to, find new ways to stand out, that's where you also have to put a lot of focus because there's more competition than ever when the barrier to virtual went so low.
True. Very, very true.
Yeah.
I think, getting a little bit granular. Oh, go ahead, Marka.
It's okay. I was just going to add
getting a
to it.
little.
It's like hybrid events. Oops, I'm sure we can cut that out on the cutting room floor, right? Hybrid events. I think it's really important that we know, to your point, that you're designing really two different experiences. And I think the value in hybrid is that you can reuse content, and you can save money by using something that's an online experience that maybe is offered at a different time after it's been shown live or whatever. Trying to create hybrid where you're in a cocktail party with somebody while other people are in the room, just that doesn't feel right. It doesn't work for anyone. So I think really as you look at event marketing and pricing, you're trying to figure out, how do I maximize my in-person live, the special event portions, that real network meeting aspect that you're going to get by having a real face-to-face conversation with someone. And then with the online piece, that it's really doesn't necessarily have that, but it has all the learning and education. And one thing that I think is really important as we talk about diversity and inclusion, one thing that virtual events have done for the world is make it a more inclusive experience. People that couldn't attend in person, couldn't afford to attend in person, are now attending developer conferences at Microsoft that they never would have had access to before. So there's a lot of really good elements of that online and an audience that we need to serve well. But I think really tending to look at them as creating two different experiences is important.
Yeah, I think that that's a great point. And like I said, I don't know if, we'll ever lose that digital piece, which I think is a really good thing. I think it just helps build, room for content and engagement. And that question, or that point, I guess, kind of leads me to go over and talk to Mackenzie about live entertainment. I mean, I think we're all craving a concert, or I don't know, just sit in a cozy lounge listening to live music or something. And so how do you expect, well, obviously it's changed, but how do you expect or predict how things are going to evolve as we move into 2021 and beyond?
Yeah, I think I'm certainly going to be the first person in line to go to a concert when it is safe to do so. But I think a lot of for concerts, for example, these public facing events and music festivals, where anyone really has access to them, is if they just purchase a ticket. There's Every venue is still very different and is going to do things very differently from one another. There won't really just be like an across the board, this is how things are being done, this is how concerts are happening. It's going to look totally different in every single place. So unfortunately, I don't think we will see that consistency right away. I think some people are going to get really creative and try new things, continuing to do things outdoors and spaced, while some people might just, try and go back to normal as soon as possible and not necessarily change too much. So that being said, I think it would be best for a lot of these people to get together and try and set some standards, these venue owners, artists and their teams as well. But I do think there hasn't necessarily been one group or company to kind of set that standard, set that tone of what needs to happen. I've heard some venues saying, we're only doing it if you've been vaccinated, or you have to prove that you've had tested negative in the past 24 hours or so. So some people are going to take those measures, but it's just going to look a lot different everywhere, including internationally as well. So I think it'll just be interesting to see, because there isn't necessarily that one rule setter in this live event, especially with music.
Yeah, I think that's probably the thing too, is it's not one size fits all, right? I think every event is going to be different. And even like we mentioned before, I think by state, things are just going to be different, and we're going to have to be flexible and nimble, like Marcus said too. So we're going to go and take a quick break. We've got a special message from one of our sponsors. So go ahead and take it away, Search.
Hi guys, Kate Fateh with Search Foundation. Excited to be joining you again today. Search Foundation is a 501c3 for our industry, by our industry. We help event individuals that are in crisis, and there's a lot of ways that you can help as well. Visiting searchfoundation.org, donating with the text to give simply by texting the word search to 44321. You can purchase one of these great heart pins to wear at all of your upcoming events, or follow along online for part of the story. Our goal for 2021 is to continue to distribute funds to event industry professionals that are in crisis. So visit searchfoundation.org today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kate. And we are back with our lovely panelist. So I think this part of our conversation is going to be, we're going to dip a little bit into what happened in 2020. I don't want to talk too much about that because I know we're moving forward, but just talking a little bit how we're moving forward, how we're adjusting, what we're excited about. So again, this is just open to the group, but what did you learn? What was the biggest learning you had in 2020 that's really helping to set you up for success in 2021?
I'd say one of my takeaways from 2020 is I work with the greatest team of people ever, because they really kept their wits about them and stayed confident and stayed teamed together and really put themselves out there to learn new things. So, whether they're learning vMix or different skill sets, my takeaway was just I was more grateful for the team that I work with now than ever before. It's one of my learnings.
That's great. What about you, Mackenzie?
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I was honestly surprised by how tenacious people are, and especially in the events industry. If a year ago today, we were all totally wondering how things were going to go, what the year would look like, very, stressed. So it was pretty awesome to see how creative people got, how quickly, figuring things out, how things could still work and how people could still meet even virtually. I think it was a really great thing to see, just that there is no lack of creativity in our industry.
That's very true. We're creative individuals. What about you, Catherine? Did you have any tips that what kept you moving forward in 2020?
I agree with both. I was amazed at how much faster we could all move than I think perhaps we thought that we could. I mean, from, enabling tech and making decisions about events and team structures and things shifted so much. For me personally, the thing that was the most energizing about 2020, because we certainly know the hardships and the challenges, was just how much we all learned. The learning curve was so massive, but it was like you're just taking absolutely everything in. I think the industry also came together in a way that I hadn't seen before. There was more conversations than ever, I think, because we did shift into this Zoom and virtual conferencing world, that everyone was willing to hop on a call, information share more than we have before. And whether it was a competitor or not, everyone came from a place of, how can we help each other, serve each other? I agree with Mackenzie. Like if there's something creatively is working over here, let's share it so that we can, all reap the benefits of that. So it was, pretty incredible in terms of just how much we were able to accomplish.
Yeah, exactly. Totally. I think it was a nice pause. I think coming from a planner perspective, we had some good downtime, but I think everyone got pretty bored. We're used to running, fully charged all the time. So I think as planners and people in the industry, we wanted to keep going fast. So,
I think there was a lot of people in 2019 that were saying, I just can't, this pace is so much. I wish I could just have a sabbatical. And all of a sudden we got one. Much different than we thought we'd have. But I think, to your point, it really was a big change of pace for all of us, and really overnight. So I think everybody on our team learned a lot about taking care of themselves too. I think for me, that was one of the takeaways, is just really getting time in the outdoors, and the importance of those things for all of my coworkers too, that you just really take care of your mental health of your team, because a lot of people are alone and are going through difficult times. COVID has not been easy on people and on people's mental health. So we really tried to promote you know, how important it is to get fresh air and exercise during times like this. And I want to keep that when things get busy again, that we make time to continue to keep that going.
Good. Yeah, that was one of my questions too. I mean, what are things that changed within the companies like that? Do you have breaks within the day where you have Zoom fatigue and you let your clients step away or your employees step away from the screen for a minute? Like, is there anything you guys are doing now moving in that COVID kind of allowed you to see to better mental health or just overall like kind of a work-life balance?
Well, I think too, just the fact that we're having, that mental health, talking about it is at the forefront. So we're certainly in that mindset. I was going to say too, with Mark, I agree. I mean, going from having a commute, being on the road, I don't know how many weeks out of the year, and traveling, and you take and you stop that, even if you're busy doing other things, and it gives you this healthy dose of perspective. But with our teams, we've kind of been through the whole arc of it. It's, we added a lot more, leadership team added a lot more communication on the front end, which I think was needed and exactly the right strategy. So kind of took the approach of, you can't be, updating teams enough. I did, like coffee and conversations, more one-on-ones, more check-ins. We were doing virtual happy hours, which I told Mackenzie once. We had a very funny comedian who made a really early shift to, pivoting his style to Zoom, take advantage of those early on Zoom happy hours. And it was great, but, finding new ways to connect, not just assuming that everyone is just doing okay, not just always leading with work, being willing to, have really honest conversations and be supportive and talk to other team members. What we encourage too is, especially some of those emerging leaders, to really empower them to make sure that they're, setting up time with team members, and are we, connecting in new and fun ways. And we just had a meeting yesterday about, we're trying to gamify it. We're going to try to not make it too overcomplicated, but like ways that actually encourage people to go for a walk during the day, do something fun, because it's very easy to say, but we get really busy, and our marketing teams right now are really busy because there's so much, everything is content and repurposing what we're doing for our virtual events and video editing. And there's a lot of that going on. So you can't just say it, you have to really back it up so that people know we mean this, we take it seriously. People are the most important thing, and your mental health is really important too.
Very true.
Yeah, I would say too that I was always of the mindset of being efficient and being, time is very valuable. This meeting could have been an email, but I kind of reversed that line of thinking after to really just connect with people on my team more. We don't have to have a goal every single time we talk. We can just, check in every once in a while. And so our team started doing daily 15-minute check-ins, like everybody in the morning, just kind of a stand-up. And that's helped a lot. I think it really helped everybody not only just stay sane during the thick of it last year, but it also did kind of help motivate us to just know what everybody else is up to, know what everyone might need help on, and just see people face to face when we're not actually together in person.
The interesting thing about that too is we got to see people in ways that we would never have seen them before, unshowered, with their pets, in their home. And, there's a personal connection that comes with that, right? That we are able to really see what people are all about and find that connection with each other because of commonalities or interests or anything. And I think that's one of the things that's been most fun on those touch base conversations like you were talking about there. It's just really seeing that and going, what is that in the background? Is that, oh, that's a guitar, or that's a cat, or all of these things you're learning about people that you may not otherwise have known. And especially when people go, oh, it's shower day. I showered for you guys today. So it's definitely a different world
deal.
than it was. Yeah, for sure. It was a shower day,
That's
wasn't
awesome.
it, ladies?
Well, as a new mom, I can say that I really appreciate when people are okay with kids being in the camera, because every now and then babies and dogs and things pop in screen. And I think, to your point, Marka, it's really made things human.
Yeah.
And I've really appreciated that. And I think that's a great takeaway too.
Mm-hmm.
Good point. Obviously, last year was a huge year for women too. And I know that we're all, females and looking to do whatever we can to kind of empower each other. And so, Mackenzie, do you have any tips on things that you've done within your company or just maybe personally that you help kind of push women forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think my co-founder and I are both females, and we have always really taken the approach that, we are equals, not necessarily thinking about it as that. There's certainly, of course, there are disadvantages. We all have been there, but just trying not to really think about it as something we have to overcome, but just that's just, this is kind of how things are, and we do have as many opportunities if we create them for ourselves. So, and most of our team is women as well. So I think, I think it's been a good mindset to have, just kind of pushing through, certainly giving one another opportunities, but also just having the mindset of, I can absolutely do anything that people in my industry are doing, men or women.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and on
I
that same
totally
note, I think. Oh, go ahead, Marka.
I totally agree with what Mackenzie just said. I think it's important that, it's great we just got our women-owned business certification, and we did that, and because we know that we're going to have the opportunity to bid on things that we might not have before, just because we're getting that opportunity. And I was talking about to some of my male colleague friends about this the other day, saying, I feel a little bit guilty because I feel like we need to be the best at what we do, and it has nothing to do with gender. And they were like, get over yourselves. You guys really didn't have the opportunity we did for a while, so just take the advantage and enjoy it. But I really, really echo your sentiments, Mackenzie. I think it's just really important that we look at women, we look at all walks of life as the same and with equal opportunity. And while that hasn't been traditionally the case, that's where we need to get to. So I think showing that we care, that it's not about that we're women, it's about doing the best that we can. So.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
And I think on that same note too is, as we're building out new event programs within for our clients or even within companies, I think last year there was a big focus on diversity and inclusion, which is very powerful. And so Catherine, how is Informa, I guess, as a gigantic global company, kind of leaning into that and really making sure that not only are your events, touching on both those things, but internally as well?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been two-pronged. I'm based in Minneapolis, Minnesota, so certainly an epicenter of, diversity and inclusion talks, based on the, murder of George Floyd and the subsequent riots here. And so, we activated early on. It started internal. We wanted to be having those conversations. Our teams felt really passionate. I think everyone did. I mean, we all felt this call, and so that's where we started. And so it became, okay, how do we look at everything from, some of it, falls to HR or people and culture teams, but in terms of pay and hiring and communication and, equality internally. And then we also expanded that to, okay, well, we're an event organizer. We put a lot of people on stages and we represent, a lot of audiences and communities. And we really want to make sure that is diverse and we're getting that blend right. And so there's a lot of different levers that we pulled. I think one that we started to, update fairly early on, that's pretty, tangible and can kind of be lifted for other events, especially on the conference and trade show side of things, is we really looked at how we do call in speakers. And it's, historically been a pretty formulaic process. You sort of use your current databases and send out emails or do social posts. And, you realize that that's not probably going to bring in the right blend. So we retooled a lot of that, so that we could search for talent and search for new voices and make sure that we're finding new partnerships, that we're, getting the right mix that we hope, will then show, representation in a way that then expands our own databases and gets other people interested. So that's an area that we put a lot of focus on, just because we know that, keynotes and speakers and presenters and having that right blend is really important. And you want to take that outside of just, D&I or, women's lunches and put it right front and center and make sure that you're showing just how important it really is.
Yeah, that's a great point. And Marka, same question to you. I mean, I know that you work with multiple different clients in multiple different industries. So how are you kind of setting up your clients for success when it comes to diversity and inclusion?
I think really just, I'm going to go back to the attendee mindset again, really understanding who the attendees are and being culturally aware. So we tend to do more corporate, high-end, smaller events. And so for diversity and inclusion, it could be just something as simple as I'm on an all vegan diet, or any of those little tiny details, making sure we've thought through where our attendees are coming from, what are they going to want, and how do we make them feel included? And if you don't have a kosher meal, or you don't have some of these things on there, somebody's going to feel not included just by those simple little details. So getting to understand that attendee, who they are, what they're coming from, and what their cultural role is, and making sure that your attendee program incorporates their needs in it seamlessly. They don't have to ask to be special to, because if I have to ask for my vegan meal, or I have to ask for my kosher meal, I'm culturally not, I don't feel as invited because nobody thought of me first, right? So I think those are the little details that you can do for diversity and inclusion. Of course, there's many other ones with just stated policies, and of course everything we learned with Me Too, and everything we've added to events for women's safety, and but it's all of those elements as well. But it really comes down to the little tiny details that you get right. That's what makes people feel included.
That's great. And Mackenzie, do you have any thoughts around that? And I know obviously the music and entertainment world, if there's any thoughts on that and how you're bringing diversity inclusion to your clients through entertainment?
Yeah, it certainly has been something that people really want to incorporate in their events, but don't necessarily know how. So we have been trying to, recruit as many minority speakers and entertainers to have available. But I think a lot of people are really even wanting that to be kind of a theme of their event, or a bigger highlight than not. So really just making those things available, and then even getting more creative of, not just having access to these types of speakers that are minorities, but, what are those things that we can do to go above and beyond to make it entertaining, creative, unique, and diverse.
That's great. And staying on the entertainment topic, I think I've seen a lot of virtual events. I've either, helped with them or sat in on them as an attendee. And I think sometimes the live entertainment falls a little flat. And maybe it's not as engaging as we wanted it to be, a live concert or a live performance or something. So how are you guys keeping it interesting for attendees and relevant?
That's a great question. And honestly, was kind of the biggest question we had to ask ourselves at the beginning of this is this going to translate to virtual? And a lot of things did not. So we found pretty quickly what worked well or what didn't work at all. And fortunately, a lot of our entertainers got creative themselves and did things that were more interactive. For example, we do book a lot of music, but to make it feel more engaging, to make it worth being there live, so doesn't feel like you're just watching a YouTube video. Some artists would take requests live and mash up all of the songs from the Zoom chat, for example, and do things that did affect whether you were there live or not. So also bigger artists that people would want to go see live and in concert, they kind of got that ability to now be a little bit closer to them. It was more of a smaller group. They could actually do a Q&A or ask questions and communicate with that artist rather than just watch a performance. So we tried to do things that you could only do virtually and make that the special part about it. But there's still, I mean, we're still trying to be as creative as possible, and hopefully we'll continue to find things that are engaging.
That's great. I would love to hear from all of you guys. I think some takeaway or a big question from our attendees was, what are some trends that we're seeing in 2021? And I'm like I said with the entertainment, I would love to see more engaging entertainment across virtual platforms. But I want to hear from each one of you, and you guys can either tell us, what is a trend that you're seeing, or what is the best advice that you have for our industry as we move into kind of uncharted territory. So, Mackenzie, why don't you go first?
Sure. Let's see. A trend that I'm seeing is, I mean, certainly while I think the bare minimum is that it should be engaging and it should be unique. I think, certainly people have different opinions on how to do that and how to be creative, but I think the bar is only getting higher for the more and more virtual events that happen. So some trends I've seen people trying a lot of different things as far as how, like, the timing of their event and how they're spacing things out. Like, a lot of times, they might try and cram everything into one day or even a 2-day period. But now I'm seeing them like expand that through a whole month and do like one session a week or something. Certainly depends kind of what the goals of the event are and who the attendees are. But people are just, I guess this isn't necessarily a trend, but people are trying everything, I guess, and being really creative. And that's fun to see and help be a part of.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you. What about you, Catherine?
Well, I do have a little bit of advice. I always say with trends, if you have a marketer tell you the trends, they'll be gone the next week because we ruin everything. Then we do it to the nth degree. But I sat on a roundtable a couple of weeks ago with 25 event marketers actually, and it was really interesting. And it had a little bit of a tech slant to it, but you had everyone talking about what email provider are you using? What's your content management system? What are you A/B testing? And how do we get unique open rates? And, on and on and on and on. And what I think is going to help someone win is the tech is now table stakes. Everyone's kind of measuring the same things. And that's not where you want to spend all of your time, just looking at channels and metrics. And that's, where we're inclined to go. No one was having the conversation around how do we get to know our customers better? What's something that we could do that would be a non-trend? That's probably going to have you stand out the most and regain their interest. What's a new problem that we can solve and really take ownership of that? So I think you have to think, and those, they might sound like broad brushstrokes, but when you're doing your planning, if you're asking those things instead of going right into tactics, it's going to steer you towards a better North Star. And I think we just need to get really close to who our audience is. If you can find a way to have that feedback loop, whether it's through a little bit of research or surveys or social or advisory boards, but getting more connected than ever is really important. And then invite them along on the story, involve them in your marketing, do your clubhouse, events, be community managing everything, because it's gonna help draw in that potential audience base sooner, as opposed to waiting until you've got everything set for your event and you're ready to have these perfect, beautiful promos. And that agility, I think, is going to make a big impact.
Awesome. Thank you. And Marco, what about you? Any trends or advice that you have for all of our
think my co-panelists did a brilliant job answering it as they have. And I think, I would just, coupling on to something Mackenzie said, is just cadence of a meeting. So, our attention spans are not set up for 1 hour long online Zoom, Teams, whatever meeting. And I think people are really, this was something that was really starting in 2019, but as we get back together, I think we're going to see more of it, just flipping who's talking to who, less talking at people and more time for people to engage with each other, I think is a really important, and I would say it's not on trend yet. It's not to the marketers yet, but I think what we'll see when people do get back together is really trying to create these unique human connections. So finding an opportunity where I can get to know somebody on another level, because truly that's what we've all missed. And I think when we get back together, having us find really creative ways to facilitate that is going to be on trend.
That's awesome.
I was
wait,
going to add,
I got a crystal ball there too.
oh,
I saw that.
we
I
need
wanted
the
to ask you,
answers.
what does it say?
Okay, these, by the way, are such great little party favors. It's a crystal ball, but it's one of those little, you can buy them on Amazon. They're little pool lights, and they're rechargeable, and they go all different colors, and they can look really cool when you have a lot of them. So there you go. That's my crystal ball for my trend of the future.
Love it. Catherine, did you have something you wanted to mention before we wrap up?
I was just going to say, Margaret, she's spot on. I think if I had to make one little prediction, I will say it's that events are going to be less about the traditional, models that we've had, less about just learning together and more about creating things together. Because that shared experience is a driver. If you're actually making something, if you're building something, if you're doing something, hands-on, or that you're taking it just beyond, I don't know, standard matchmaking or roundtables. And if you come up with something that allows people to experience connection in a new way, that really is going to help your event stand out. Because I think that's what we're all longing for, but we have to give people a reason to opt in and say yes.
Well, we hopefully can all dust off our party gear here shortly and all of our clipboards as planners and kind of get back into it. I think everyone's super excited as things are looking hopeful. So I really appreciate you guys all joining today. Thank you guys so much. It was a great panel. And if anybody tuning in has any questions for the Northwest Event Show or any of our panelists, please feel free to reach out to us on our social channels, or you're welcome to shoot us an email at info@northwesteventshow.com. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Kayla.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And don't forget to tune in for next month's. We have our next session coming up, Confidence to Gather, on April 14th. You won't want to miss that. And also this month, we've got some Keeping Up with Event Trends with our very own Jackie and Mark on March 25th. They're also working and doing some fun industry trivia nights, so make sure to register for that. And also a big thank you to our event partners. As I said before, it takes a village to produce these things, and we just really, really appreciate all of our partners involved. SH Worldwide, Project Bionic, MC Event Consulting, Campos Coffee, the Search Foundation, and Norina Productions. And of course, as always, a big shout out to our internal team. We've got Stuart and Jeremy behind the scenes, as well as Marion Clifton, Johnny, and Jackie. And again, thank you for all coming together and collaborating on this. It was a great panel, and I appreciate everybody tuning in. So happy St. Patrick's Day, and have a great day. See you guys later.